Welcome to Action Energy Market Global podcast. My name is Tarja Teppo. I'm the founder of Action Energy Finance. In this video podcast, we interview people that work with clean transition. We highlight solutions and stories behind them and explore project financing options utilized. Okay, and today we got to podcast studio Mikko Valtonen from Next Sense. And I guess the company has changed name rather recently. So this is, some may know the company with the name Edge Next. And within Next Sense, Mikko is the VP of Global Operations and during Edge Next, he was the CEO of the company. And so this sort of brings a nice bridge into how did you, Mikko, end up to where you are today? What brings you to the real estate, the wonderful world of real estate and sustainability and energy and all that jazz? So what's the story? You know, the good and the bad.
Yes. First of all, thanks for having me. Great to be here. Long story short, I ended up with the sustainability technology field already in '99 when I founded my first company called Provenza together with a couple of my friends from the university. So I've studied business here in the University of Jyväskylä. And at the time, there was a program called Corporate Environmental Management, which was my major. And we started a business in '99 called Provenza. And the idea of that business was to automate and help companies report on their environmental and sustainability issues. I can't believe that it's been 25 years and I'm still doing more or less the same. But in a different setup.
Changed. Since the 90s, right?
Yes, so a lot has changed, and then there are things that haven't really changed. So we had a slogan at the time that non-financial reporting should be as important as financial reporting for the valuation of the companies. Obviously, at the time, the main customer segment was Finnish or Nordic pulp and paper and forestry companies. And they were obviously the forerunners in this whole sustainability movement at the time, or environmental movement, I should say. The GRI reporting was coming into place. There was the first GRI, Global Reporting Initiative reporting standard that was, I think, established. So we started a company, fresh out of university. We thought that we can conquer the world. Everything.
How difficult can it be? Yeah.
Yes, exactly. It can't be that difficult. And but Provenza was a great. It was a great story at the end of the day. So we started with 3 people. At some point, we had 35 people, and then we were back to 7 people, and really going back and forth. We raised 3 rounds of VC funding during my time as the founder and the CEO, and then merged with one of our competitors / partners 10 years after. And the company actually still exists, doing still non-financial reporting and data collection for major companies. But I then left the company, the new company, after my period of putting the merger together, or helping with the merger. And during that time, when we were selling our company Provenza, there was a company called BWise from the Netherlands, which was a GRC, so governance, risk management, and compliance software company, who was part of the discussions to maybe acquire us. Well, that never went through at the end of the day. But when I then posted on LinkedIn that, hey, I'm now out of that, my own business, then they reached out to me and said that, hey, we have this risk management platform for major corporations based in the Netherlands. Would you be interested in building the sustainability practice as part of that GRC platform? And then I did that. So I started traveling to the Netherlands and worked for BWise for, I think, 7 years altogether or something like that. They were headquartered in Rosmalen, of all places, in the Netherlands. So a couple of years, Nasdaq acquired the company, and Nasdaq obviously wanted to then expand the business, especially and then moved my family to Portland, Oregon for a couple of years. Which was an awesome experience. Looking back to it, living in the US with 4 little kids and trying to establish something from scratch. Obviously, we had the Nasdaq network, but what my role there was the especially business development and how do you get the first customers, the first partners, hire the first people, and so on and so forth. I did that for 2 years. Then I had a 2-year agreement with them, and they basically offered me to do the same in Brazil, in Sao Paulo. Well, like I said, I had 4 little kids, and Sao Paulo didn't look like a great idea at the time. So so we decided to come back to Finland. And,
so you were thinking tropics or sort of
exactly.
the cold
Back
north?
back to Lake Päijät and Jyväskylä, where we are both from with my wife. So we decided to come back home. And then I joined a local energy management company here in Jyväskylä at the time called Energia Kolmio. And again, a lot of mergers and acquisitions and twists and turns. And after a couple of years of that, I was recruited to become the CEO of a company called Nuuka. And Nuuka is obviously a real estate energy management company using AI as well. I think that business. When I joined the company, we were very small, about 7 people, 8 people. But we were able to start a real good growth path with that business. Signed a couple of big new customers, and one of the customers was a company called Edge Technologies in Amsterdam.
Right.
So that's why I kind of ended up with knowing the people from the Edge side. And after a few years, we were sitting together delivering one of our projects with the Edge people actually in New York, and they started thinking maybe we should do because a little bit of a background story. So Edge is a big real estate developer, mainly developing smart and sustainable commercial buildings, mainly offices. The idea there was that when they develop a building, it's always the most sustainable and smartest building in the city. But
and they have some amazing buildings in the world.
They have really amazing buildings and are in business. But at the time, they were kind of asking that, okay, we are now doing and developing these beautiful buildings on our own, but would there be a possibility to sell these smart technology or sustainability technology to other real estate developers, investors, or even tenants? And to me, that was a very exciting and interesting proposition because obviously Edge has a very good network in the real estate industry, especially with the big investors. So I joined them and started building what used to be called Edge Next. And that happened about 6 years ago. I actually was supposed to be here we had a 1-year agreement. Let's create a business plan. Let's hire the first people. And, 6 years later, I'm still here. But,
that's
happens.
how that goes.
Yeah. And so Edge Next grew from, basically 2 people to about 25 people. And then about 2 months ago, 6 weeks ago, we merged with a company called Sense by Physi, and we are now called Next Sense. So what we do today is that the mission is to decarbonize the real estate industry and do that with data. Because if you look at the big commercial buildings of today, especially the newer ones, they are like computers. So you basically go into a big 20,000 square meter building. If it's a commercial building, you have 10,000, 20,000 different type of sensors and data points. And with that data, what we see is that both from the operational perspective, so when those buildings are operating, you can really help them, be more efficient, be smarter, be more sustainable. And then also when you are designing these new commercial buildings, we can help with that data that we've now gathered in terms of simulating what would happen if you would do this or what would happen if you do that as a building developer. So that's kind of what the company does today.
Okay. So continuing that, what you just explained. So is that when it comes to Next Sense, is the majority of the customers that you work with or the buildings that you work with, are they existing buildings or is this like new construction? So
yes.
So I guess sort of.
Yeah. So the answer to that is both. But obviously 97% of the existing building stock out there is not Paris proof. It's not sustainable enough. So that's where the market is for sure. However, we do work with a lot of big investors who either develop or renovate or acquire an older building and turn it into a brown to green. So there are also a lot of functionalities that we can do, or a lot of solutions that we can offer to investors when they develop new buildings. But the majority of the business comes from existing buildings for sure. And 39% of the total carbon footprint globally comes from existing buildings. So that's the market we want to decarbonize as much as we can.
That's right. taking on that, what you said, turning from brown to green. So when it comes to, say that you have a new customer, complex building, big real estate developer or owner, the what are the steps when Next Sense comes into the picture? So I mean, you talked about sort of the role of data. But what actually happens from if you take a company from brown to green? Does it just go with data, or does something else need to
Yeah,
happen?
well, what our role in that process is that if let's say you have a big real estate investor and a portfolio of 10 buildings, or let's say 20 buildings. So most of them are obviously existing buildings already. Typically, you would renovate 20% of your stock on a yearly basis, or of your asset, or something like that. So what we do is we try to connect to the whole portfolio and really see where the ROI is the best in terms of saved carbon footprint or saved kilowatt hour. So we connect to these buildings, we see how they perform. We see if the HVAC system needs tweaking, or if what can we do operationally to get the low hanging fruits. And at the same time, when we analyze those buildings, we can create these multi-year investment plans to say, hey, your building number 2 seems like, if you just change the BMS and if you just change the HVAC settings, you can save 25% of energy. Then there might be a building number 7, which is an old, piece of not the greatest building, and then you might have to go with a full infrastructure renovation
Total overhaul.
process. Yeah, exactly. So what we are trying to do, or what we are doing with our big real estate investor customers, is that we obviously connect to all of those buildings. We monitor how they perform, we visualize the data, and we really help them. And then on the other hand, when we now know how your stock is or your assets are performing, we can help you design these investment plans of what should you do, where should you invest your 50 million or 10 million or 5 million to make the biggest change in terms of sustainability and road to Paris proof, as we call it.
Okay, the real estate investors or funds or so forth. Are they just doing this from the goodness of their heart, or is there something else? I mean, are they after sort of that they can put the Paris proof sticker somewhere, or what's driving them? And maybe sort of looking back to trying to tie that back what you talked about 20 plus years ago when you founded Proventia. So has something changed there? I mean, is this really sort of trying to save the world, or is there something else involved?
Well, obviously, we would all wish that it's because from the goodness of it's mostly not the reality. However, the biggest drivers there are that if you are a major tenant, you want to now operate in a building that is sustainable. Because if you want to attract the best talent in the world, I mean, younger people actually do care what type of a company they work for. And then one of those things is your main office, obviously, or your main workplace. And if you want to sign a 5-year, 10-year lease agreement with global tech companies, for example, they these days bring the pressure on the investors to make these buildings as good as possible. So that's, I would say, the biggest driver. However, there are also a lot of cost-saving possibilities. If you can save 20%, 30% on your energy costs, for example, I mean, that's a big driver. So that for sure is, I think the market is definitely moving to the right direction. However, the speed of the market could be accelerated significantly. I mean, there's still a lot, 10 years or so. It's never about the technology at the end of the day. I mean, technology exists. There's so many companies who do great things in technology, but how you can actually make the change in this very complex environment or complex market where you have the investor, the property manager, the asset manager, the facility manager, the tenants, all those different stakeholders, how can you make that change so that people actually act upon the data that a lot of these companies like ourselves provide?
Yeah, I mean, that's an excellent point. I mean, what if you would need to point out what's the magic? I mean, of course, there's no magic involved, but trying to bring these different stakeholders together and also sort of elevating the voice of the tenant. So if you would need to pick a few things that you've noticed that has worked within Next Sense or in previous things.
Yeah, I think from the investor's perspective, especially, I mean, it's now very obvious that if you have a smart and sustainable building in your city, you can get a higher rent. I mean, it is as simple as that. You can just get a better tenant with a more long-term commitment, with little bit higher rent, because your building is better than the building next door. So there's an obvious, financial gain that you can make if your building is example. So I mean, that's kind of the simple answer. And then the other answer of that is that a lot of these assets are evaluated by what type of certificates they get, or do they have a BREEAM, or do they have a WELL Excellence, or whatever these certificates. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to say this from a solution provider perspective, but who cares about the WELL certificate or the BREEAM certificate? I would argue, because you get that certificate on your on your wall in day one when the building opens, and then what happens? I mean, so what we are really trying to say is that there should be basically two different measurements that you should look at. You should look at your energy, if you want to be a Paris-proof or sustainable building. Let's forget about the wellness and the other parts for just a second. What is your operational kilowatt hour consumption per square meter per year? Is it under 70 kilowatt hours, for example, which is the Dutch Paris-proof level? And how much embodied carbon has gone into that building when it's been built? Yeah. And can you lower that number to 500 or less, for example? Yeah. And obviously these different thresholds vary between countries and regions and so on and so forth. But it's great that you have that BREEAM Excellence. It's great that you have the WELL Platinum, whatever certificates, but they don't really measure the things that we think we should measure, which is sort of energy on continuous basis. Yes. Yeah. And especially if, as we all know, we have a huge challenge in this whole climate change issue, and already we are now above that 1.5 Celsius target of Paris Proof if you look at the number from last year. So why would I mean, yes, I need to worry about BREEAM and wellness because there are other drivers of that, but shouldn't we only focus on the energy consumption and sustainability metrics, which are pretty easy to gather at the end of the day.
Yeah. So it's more like going from static to dynamic. The what you just explained makes me think, because you sort of explained that the tenants are one of the driving forces, and I'm assuming that they want to use it in their in their customer communications, digital marketing. Do you see that that's actually happening, that they are sort of actively utilizing that data, or do you see that there's improvement that has happened in the space, or if you want to sort of like point out like somebody, some company that's doing an excellent job in this and sort of capitalizing on this, highlighting these?
Well, I mean, one of our customers is Microsoft, and I need to be careful what I say here, but I mean, they have a pledge where they say that they're going to offset all of their carbon footprint by they're first going to be carbon neutral, and then they're going to offset the carbon that they have emitted to the atmosphere over the past 25, 30 years. I can't remember the exact numbers. I don't have them in front of me right now. Yeah. But they are really using this type of building data as well as part of because obviously it's a software technology company. So the major components come from their cloud services and all those type of things. But this is a big part of it. I mean, they have, I don't know how many buildings, but let's say 200, 300, 400 buildings that they operate or lease and own globally. So it's a big
big chunk.
Yeah. And if you can now create a program where you put all those buildings that you have a long, multi-year lease plans, for example, or you own, and make sure that those become Paris proof or those become as sustainable as possible. I mean, that drives the market, obviously, because who doesn't want a Microsoft headquarters as their main tenant in Amsterdam or Helsinki or Oslo? So I see. I mean, it's. I don't want to sound like the investors don't care. Of course they care. There are a lot of really good investors and developers who are really trying to make the best buildings ever, like the one that owns our company or majority of our company. But the pressure has to come from the market. And if
they care more when the customer puts the foot down and says that this matters to us. So that's basically
exactly
if one pulls it together. Good. Maybe as a last thing, because I mean, you've been in this field for for a
Way too
long
long.
time.
Yeah.
And I mean it's super exciting path that you've gone through, really sort of because I would say that the common theme there is like really starting from small team and then growing that and sort of
Yeah.
finding sort of the way to how to make it bigger, how to generate impact. The if you would need to sort of pick a few things, sort of like lessons learned in the real estate sustainability field, because I mean, as you said, this is it's a big sector and but the what are the lessons learned for you growing different sort of companies in this area that if that you would like to share with
Yeah.
somebody listening to the podcast and being in the same swamp, so to say?
Yeah. Well, I mean, what I've always done, and it might not have been the right thing to do, but what I've always tried to do is that when you build a new product or if you can find one or two or three good pilot customers and really do what they want you to do. So rather than I have this vision, I want to develop this software platform, blah, 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 and then I will come to the market after 2 years of developing this. What I would urge people to rather do is that, okay, I have this. Of course, you have to have your own vision. You have to know what you're trying to do and your own targets and so on as a company. But when you have that first beta version available and your good ideas, if you can now bring that to a big company that might become your customer in years to come and really work together with them to create the exactly how they would like it to be. At least that for us has worked pretty well, or for me personally as well in different companies. So when you can develop your products together with your potential future customers and really work with them in partnership, don't try to sell them everything in the first year. It's just not going to happen. You are a small startup scale-up company. Nobody believes in you, more or less. But if you have these big customers that you work together and then you can develop what they really need, that typically, I mean, if the customer is the right type of a customer, the market typically follows. So if you can work something with our main customer was Stora Enso. So if Stora Enso, so and the same with with the other businesses that we've had. So if you want to go after the public, let's say cities and communities and all that kind of stuff. I mean, very well that we work with the city of Helsinki with Nuuka. If they are happy, probably the other cities will follow. So and it takes time. I mean, you always have your budget way, revenue forecast never happens and the costs are always overrun for the first couple of years. So make sure that you don't set the expectations too high in the first year or two, because then you lose all the credibility towards your, investors. But that's kind of the main message that I would tell somebody who's trying to do the same thing. Just as quickly as possible, work with your customers. They will understand. They will understand that you are developing a software solution or whatever solution. If you tell it to them, directly, hey, I have this idea. Do you think this idea is great? Can you help me develop this? And if this then works for you in 1 year's time, you can get this for 80% discount or whatever the case.
Yeah.
So that type of approach we've typically taken with the companies that I've worked with, and then at least, if nothing else, you have developed a solution or value proposition that meets somebody's needs who is well-known, established player in the market, and you can grow from there.
Yeah. Okay, super. Mikko, this was a great sort of a wrap-up for anybody sort of listening to the path that you've gone through in this sector. So thank you coming to the podcast today, and have a great continuation of the day.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you for listening. To follow future episodes, subscribe to our newsletter at www.actionenergymarket.com and select Action Energy Market Global Service. We publish new episodes on Fridays. If you are a technology provider or developer in the energy or clean infrastructure area, add your solution to our solution bank.